Hey everyone, it's Tucanxan and welcome to the Tucanxan art channel. We're working on, I think, day 16 of 30 of my 30-day art challenge. So let's just talk a little bit about the process here. So first I started off by activating the Grumbacher, I'm sure it's probably Grumbacher Deluxe Opaque Watercolors. Normally I use Winsor & Newton, but this was a beautiful palette that I got from my partner, Mike. I got from Mike's parents because his mom used to use the watercolor. I think either that or it was his dad, and she doesn't use them anymore. I also used Dr. P.H. Martin's Radiant Concentrated Watercolor in Persimmon 3A and 33C Norway Blue. And just real quick to tell you what other colors I used in this piece, because I actually don't remember all of them. I used a Carmine or Carmen, Rojo Carmine in Spanish if you prefer. I used yellow, Indian yellow, and I think I used a little bit of the Yellow Ochre for the eyes eventually. And then the other colors that I used a lot were the Cobalt Blue, the Ultramarine, the Prussian Blue, the Violet I used, and the Payne's Gray. I am so in love with this Payne's Gray color. It's the perfect color for everything, like for shadows and for adding just a little bit of depth in certain areas. Like, it's really, really good, and you can make like the wash so light just to get like, that's what I'm working on right now. You saw that big blob of darkness? That was made with the Payne's Gray, and you see, like, with just like a super light wash, it just adds a little bit of depth there. Eventually, as this video goes on, you will see that I also used a silver from the Grumbacher set, and that was to put just the finishing details on the clouds, because yes, there will be clouds. I know you can't see it right now, but there will be on the clouds. And I gave her a couple of beauty marks, and I put some of that in the rim of her eyes and in the pupil of her eyes. And I didn't really use it much, but I used a 0.3 micron Pigma liner pen, because I realized when I took the tape off of the paper that I didn't have any border in the middle, and you'll see this as we go on. But I only wanted to talk a little bit about the colors that I used very briefly, because what I wanted to talk to you more about is the fact that I didn't really have a plan going into this. I knew the kind of look I wanted to achieve, and I knew that, again, I wanted to use kind of like the same colors that I've been using in this pastel kind of genre that we've created over the last few days. It's probably been like a week now that we've been doing this pastel thing. And so I didn't have a plan, but I have to say one thing that I did do for this piece is what I like to do sometimes is I'll sit on Pinterest right before I go to bed, and then I will find art that inspires me, because I literally woke up this morning, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, I don't know what I'm gonna draw, and it's about time to move on from the pastel thing. So I did, and I found some really cool things on Pinterest, but nothing really stuck. Like, I got some cool ideas that I'll probably play with after this 30-day challenge is over. But nothing that I wanted to do for today specifically. And so then I woke up this morning and I was like, you know what? This is going to be my last pastel piece. I want to go out with a bang. I want to really challenge myself, like, and do something really, really hard for me. So I was like, first of all, it's got to be a bigger piece. So I took an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and that's what I worked on. And normally that's not what I do. I work pretty small generally, especially if I want these speed paints to be quicker. Secondly, I was like, I always have, well, not always, but usually for watercolor or something like this, I have some kind of under sketch, or I have line work or something like that. And I was like, I want to see if I can just make something without any line work, without any pencils underneath it, just as the crow flies, as they say, and see if I can create a semi-realistic portrait using pastel colors. And that's what I was really trying to do throughout this piece. And it totally evolved naturally, and I think it ended up looking so cool. Like, I am really, really proud of this piece, because it took me about 4 hours to do from start to finish. Like, what you guys are seeing here is exactly the process that I did from start to finish. Like, you know, the last few days I've been kind of sketching my images off camera so that this process goes faster, but I didn't do that today. Like, literally, this is all from my head, and it's just, this is how I like to paint. It's the natural evolution of things for me. I like to keep it loose, and I think that's why what style I do have, because I don't really have a style, but what style I do have, it likens to watercolor, or it meshes very well with watercolor because it's so fluid, and you kind of just have to go with it, and you have to trust the medium to let it do what it's going to do, and trust that, you know, in your own skill, that you have the ability to make a decent looking piece. And I think that's why watercolor is really good for all types of artists. Like, sure, certain artists take to certain mediums better than others, but I really don't think that you have to be a master of anything to make a decent watercolor. And I'm not knocking it, because there are people out there that can do things with watercolor that I literally did not think was possible. And it's so moving to see people capture life with watercolor, because I just, like, it's so unpredictable, and you just have to, like, let it do what it's going to. And I really like that about watercolor. Again, as a Virgo and as a perfectionist, it takes away the ability to be a perfectionist. So that's what I was doing here. So the point is, to me, so far throughout this process, this is one of the best pieces that I have done. Like, from start to finish, I really feel like I took the time, I was patient, I did the layers, I put the work in, and I am really proud of this piece. I'm sorry if you can hear that airplane. You know what it is. I don't have a fancy mic yet. I probably will, because I want to make sure that you guys can hear me without any distractions. Anyway, so I really feel like over the course of this challenge, obviously I've learned a lot, but my skills as an artist, I feel like, have improved dramatically. Like, from the start, I never really liked to be pigeonholed in just one style. Like, the one consistent thing I think that I always draw is women, for the most part. Like, I can draw men, I just like drawing women better. But on top of that, like, I think there is, like, a certain look that each of these females have that is characteristic of my art. But I learned over the course of this challenge that I really can paint in any, or draw or color in any style that I want. And obviously YouTube is a really big part of that, because if there are any holes in my knowledge, I can learn from YouTube. That is the beautiful thing about it. Like, we live in a day and age where if you want to get better as an artist, or you want to make a living as an artist, you have the power to do that. You can do that. It's not as impossible as it used to be. And, like, some people like to look at it as like, oh, well, there's so many people trying to be artists out there, there's just no way that my stuff is gonna be, you know, is gonna make it. And it's like, that's so not true. Like, it's just not. There's so much that, there's so many different types of art out there. And yeah, sure, some people may share similarities in their style, but the beautiful thing about art is that it will always speak to someone, even if it's just one person out there. So that has been, I think, one of the most rewarding parts of this process is, like, yeah, I can do watercolor now. Yeah, I can kind of do gouache now. Yeah, I've gotten way better at using my Copic markers now. I've gotten better at framing a scene. I've gotten better at drawing facial features. I've gotten better at rendering the human body. Like, all of those things have improved throughout this process. And that's why, like, if you do want to get better as an artist, I really think if you're like me, where you kind of, like, get overwhelmed by everything and you do start letting that perfectionist kind of negatively impact your life and get the better of you, the best way to combat it is to force yourself to make content. Like these people, I've seen it like time and again, these people who give themselves a 365-day challenge where they create something every day. By the end of that year, they have 10,000 followers. And I'm hoping that by doing this process, I will increase my followers, because this is it. This is what I want to do with my life. Like, I have found that thing, and I will not stop until I reach the goals that I want to with this. And this piece, I was painting it, and I just had a moment where I was like, I'm there. I have reached that level that I wanted to as an artist for the last year. I think I've been doing the Instagram thing for like a year, for the last 2 years. Like, art was always just a hobby for me. I was like, man, I just do it for fun. I don't know if I can ever really get to that point where I'm like, yeah, I'm a badass artist. But I honestly, like, I believe in my talent now. Like, it was always something that I could do. I could draw well. And, you know, being made fun of for being artsy aside in a small town, like, I knew that was something I had, and so I was kind of like afraid. I was afraid to share it. But then with, like, I talked about this in another video too, with the invention of the graphic novel that I've been working on for the last year, I was just like, I know I can do this. I know I can learn the skills to create a graphic novel. I can learn everything that I need to and be an efficient and proficient artist. And that's what's happened over these 30 days. Like, I'm there. I am at the point now where it's like I could take commissions and feel like I can do it confidently. You know, I think maybe next what I'll do is I'll focus on ink washes for the course of this 30-day challenge, because we're kind of getting close to the end. And then I don't know, maybe I'll start working on lettering. Then I'll start tackling Photoshop. Like, I want to do it all. You know, I think people get caught up in this idea where you have to specialize in one thing and you have to brand yourself and identify yourself with one thing. I have never been that person. I have always been a jack of all trades, and people think that the quote is jack of all trades, master of none, but the actual quote is jack of all trades, master of none, but better than being a master of one. And it obviously centers around the belief that it's good to know as much as you can about as many different things as humanly possible. And I've always been that kind of person. I love to teach myself. I like to learn things, but only about, obviously, what I like to learn about. So I know, again, I got super preachy just then, but I really am hoping that I'm reaching people. And I know I've said that before too, but especially to have that moment where it's like, wow, I'm really improving, like startlingly so. Like, that's a huge moment as an artist. And even if there's only 10 people who see this video, like, you all know that I've had that moment, and that means a lot for me. So thank you for joining me on this journey, and thank you for watching my videos, and thank you for listening to the process and learning what I have to share with you. Yeah, just thank you. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing this moment with me. I am so proud of this piece. And I wanted to talk a little bit, I guess, about the inspiration behind it, because I didn't go in with any inspiration, but when I finished the portrait, I was like, oh yeah, she looks beautiful and she's stunning, but there's still something kind of missing there for me. So I was like, well, I want to give her a background, because I taped this off to have this cool border for a reason. And so I was like, I usually like to overlay clouds on things like this. I don't know if you can see there, but I had to bring in my Micron Pigma because I realized there was no border in the middle of the piece. Yeah, so this is another piece kind of about emotional turbulence. And as you know, like, my mother died, and this is how it feels. Like, it's beautiful. I'm a beautiful person. I'm a strong person because of what I went through, but I suffered, and there's a lot of pain that goes with it. So that's kind of what this piece is. Like, you're kind of in the depths of the ocean, and there's a storm overhead, but you still grow and you become an amazing person because of it. Hopefully, if you want to. So that's it. That was the entire process. And again, just thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me. Like, it just means so much. And I really hope you had a fantastic weekend. And I will see you here tomorrow. Have a good one.